Well, let's talk about math. Let's talk about volume. Brainstorm. What comes to mind when you hear volume? What do you think?
The whole thing.
Yeah, space. The inside of something. What'd you say? The whole thing. Boom. Good. All excellent answers. So, if I could fill this with a whole bunch of cubes that are 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter, like just, cubes that are like 1 meter big. How many cubes can I fill this with? And that's what volume is, right? So, before I give you the definition, I want to try to kind of give you a visual of this. Some of you guys, it's going to help, and some of you guys are going to be like, Mr. Kelly, why do you do this? So, if I have a square, I can take the area of that square, right? Let's say each of these little boxes are 1 meter. Well, what's the area of this entire square? 4. There are 4 square meter boxes. There are 4 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So that's what we mean when we're talking about area. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now I'm going to take this and I'm going to flip it over a little bit. And so I'm going to give it so this is still that box. This is still 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is still 1 meter, 1 meter, 1 meter, 1 meter. But now I'm going to give it an extra meter down. Boom. Now, you guys don't necessarily have to draw this. I'm just trying to make it a little bit clearer for you. So now we're talking about volume. We're not talking about squares anymore. We're talking about cubes, right? This is how many squares can fit in this. 4 squares. This is how many cubes can fit. 4 cubes, right? Well, this, let's say that this is still, that's 1 meter, and one of these is, here, actually let me increase the thickness. Right? So that's just a cube that fits in there. So if we drop it down another, and we add another m to it, well, this first level right here, that was 4 meters cubed, right? And if I add 4 more to it, now I have 8 meters cubed. And then of course I could just keep on going with this. And I would add another 4 to it, and that's 12 meters cubed. But my point is that if I have these 3 meters, that's 3 meters total. The length of this is 2 meters, and the width here is also 2 meters. So my volume is just 2 times 2 times 3, right? And 2 times 2 is 4, times 3 is 12. Length times width times height. And that's all we're talking about. And I know that this might seem simple to some, but sometimes it's stuff for folks to visualize what we're talking about when we're talking about volume. We're really just talking about how many cubes can you fit into something. So volume, let's talk about it with base, is base times height. area of the base times height. So this B, area of base. And H is the height. And then height we're going to say between bases. So now, when it says find the volume of the rectangular prism, and that's one of these guys here that's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, all the way up to 22, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cubes. So we're looking at all these cubes that fill up this entire area right here. So it's really just going to be area of the base we start with times the height. So my base right here, they've shaded in this one, this base. So I'll go ahead and make that my base. 5 times 22 equals 110. And if I'm talking about area, basically how many squares can fit on a plane, it's meters what? Squared. Yeah, for area, how many squares can fit on a plane. And remember, that was basically this guy right there. That's area. How many squares? But height, so this is where it gets tricky, guys. What's my height if this is my base right here? 8, yeah. It's the area between the two bases. And that's an excellent question. Because I chose this as my base, so this is one base and then this is another base, my sides. And so the area between those two bases is 8. Yep. It would have been the exact same thing, because the area of your base, if you did this, is 8 times 5, and then height is 22. Or 22 times 5 times 8. Either way, it's just area of your base times your height. Now guys, why am I not just saying length times width times height? Because sometimes that base is going to be a triangle, or sometimes that base is going to be a pentagram, or sometimes that base is going to be an octagon, or whatever, but you're not always going to just be able to say length times width times height. Sometimes it's area equals 1/2 of base times height. Blah, blah, blah. But anyways, this is going to be, what? Not 22, Mr. Kelly. This is going to be 8. So, for our volume equals our base, 110, times our height, 8. So, 880, and since we're talking about how many cubes we can get to fit into something, meters cubed. Okay, let's look at number 2, example number 2. Find the volume of the following prism. Now this is one of those places, or name and find the volume. This is one of those places where we can't exactly do length times width times height. Well, first of all, what is the name of the shape of those bases there? Yeah, it's a triangular prism, and it's not just a triangular prism, but in this case it's a right triangular prism. And guys, if you happen to see that on the test, make sure you include right triangular prism. Okay, so once again I'm going to write my formula for volume, because I want to write that down a whole bunch. Area of the base times the height. And I'm going to write, I always like to write, all of the stuff that I have to find on the left-hand side. So I have to find the area of the base. Well, it's a triangle, so area of the base is going to be 1/2 of base times height for my triangle. I'll look at that in just a second. What is the height between the two bases? 7. Okay. So I've got that so far. Let's look at this triangle. So I know that this area is going to be base times height over 2, right? Notice that my base of the triangle is 4. What is the height? 3. And this is where a lot of people get mixed up. They mix the height of the triangle up with the height of the prism. So make sure you keep those separate. But 4 times 3 divided by 2. 4 times 3 is 12 divided by 2. Exactly, you get 6. And since we're talking about area, how many squares can fit in a shape? 6 centimeters squared. Okay, so we're going to go all the way back here. And my base equals 6. Volume equals my base times my height. And talking about volume, so centimeters cubed. How many cubes can fit in one shape? 42 cubes, as long as they're centimeters. Okay. Example number 3, find the volume of an equilateral triangular prism with the side length for the triangle, blah, blah, blah. All right. Well, first of all, let me take a look at what it tells me, what type of prism it tells me it is. What's the important part of that? Equal. Equilateral triangle. So here's my triangle. It says a side length for 4 centimeters. What are the other two sides of my triangle? 4. Good, because it's an equilateral triangle. Okay, and I've got boom, boom. Oops. And so that's going to be. All right, so once again, volume equals base times height. Ugh. All right, go ahead and try this. Tough thing is that area of that triangle. That's the area of your base right there. Say it again. Okay, really good question. How do we find the height? So, first of all, what do you think, if you were grading a test that had this on there, what do you think the mistake that most people would make for the height? What do you think they would say the height is? 4. Very good. Very good. But it's not, is it? The height goes from here to here. Right? So, and it's an equilateral triangle, so what do we know the measurement of each angle? 60. And if this angle is divided by 2, 30 per angle. Okay. So we've got a 30-60 right triangle. Okay. And we know that this side is 4. This side is 2. And so on my formula sheet, I would look up what a 30, 60, 90 triangle is, and it would say x, 2x, and x root 3, because 30, 60, 90 is easy as 1, 2, 3, 4x. And so in this case, what's the value of my x? 2, right? And that makes sense because my hypotenuse is 2 times x, 2 times 2. Well, that's 4. And so this side of my right triangle would be what? This side right here. If x is 2, then what is this? 2 root 3. You just plug in whatever this is for x. 2 root 3. So that's your height. That's your height.
The height of
Exactly. So the height to find the area of the base. There it should be using this thing. Exactly, because that's the most missed thing. A lot of folks will say, okay, that's the height of the prism. No, no, no. What's the height of the base? So area equals 1/2. And so what is the base of our base here? 4 times the height of it was 2 root 3. Very good. What is 1/2 of 4 here? 2. What is 2 times 2? 4. You got it. 4 root 3. So the area of our base is 4 root 3, so I'm going to say B equals 4 root 3. H, what does H equal in this case? 10. The length of the prism is 10 centimeters. So H equals 10, and then I just plug it in. Volume equals 4 root 3 times 10. Yeah, that's right. So 40 root 3. And I can just leave it like that. Of course, I have to put my units on here. Centimeters cubed, because we're seeing how many cubes there are in there. If it asked me to find it to the nearest hundredth or nearest thousandth, then I would just enter that into my calculator. 40 times square root of 3. Okay. All right. Example 4, a pentagonal prism has a volume of 165 meters cubed. So you know what? I'm just going to write that in there right now. Volume equals 165 meters cubed. The area of the base is 33 meters squared. So my big B, 33 meters squared. Find the height. So it wants me to find it, so I know they've lost it, so that's X. And now I can just write down my formula. Volume equals base times height. And I can plug in my stuff. Well, since I have this handy little thing, volume is 165 meters cubed equals 33 times X. And then I just divide both sides by 33. Both of these guys cancel out. Boom. And then 165 divided by 33, X equals 5. Since we're talking about height, is it meters, meters squared, or meters cubed? Meters, right? I would say that I'm 5'10" or 5 feet 10, and I wouldn't say that I'm 5'10" squared. If you are 5 feet 10 squared, then you need to be trying out for the Cowboys' offensive line because you are this huge block of a guy. All right, 5'10" both ways. All right, so height is just meters or feet, whatever. Okay, volume of a cube. Well, volume of a cube is just E times E times E, or E cubed. And find the volume of a cube with an edge of 9 inches. Go ahead and do that. Well, I got. All right, so volume equals 9 cubed. Guys, you can either do this in your calculator, you can just say 9 times 9 times 9, or you can say 9 and then there's that little caret button in your calculator, and 3. So either way, what does that get you? 729 inches cubed. Great. Excellent. Okay. Last but not least, let's talk about volume of a cylinder. So, remember how when we were talking about prism, a volume was just the area of your base times your height. Well, guys, it's the same thing with this, but in this one, what's the base of a cylinder? A circle. What is the area of a circle? Pi r squared. So guess what? Volume equals pi r squared times what? You got it. Now here's a little trick. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. If I have a stack of quarters and it's standing straight up, and I take the volume of that stack of quarters, and then I slant that stack of quarters over like that, is it still going to have the same volume? It is. It's still going to have the same exact volume. I haven't changed. It does have the same height. And so that's where this is tough. That's where this is a little bit difficult. I mean, think of it. If I stacked a stack of quarters over there and then just slanted that stack of quarters, it would still be 1 quarter plus 2 quarters plus 3 quarters plus 4 quarters, like all the way up to the top. So here's the deal. When we're talking about height right here, it's the exact height, right? If I took a ruler and I just measured from top to bottom, it's that height. It is not the slant height. Yeah. Because if it was that, I could really make that volume I mean, imagine that volume. Hey, thanks.
Very lovely. You
Thanks.
should be an architect.
Well, I appreciate it. So yeah, it's the height from top to bottom. It's not the height. It's not the slant height. So this one, it's not too tough because all you have to do is kind of plug in what you know. First of all, I always like to draw my formula again. Pi r squared times the height. And then off to the left, I'm going to say r equals, oh, this is r, by the way. It's not the diameter, it's the radius. R equals 2.7. Yeah. Height equals 5.1. And so when I just plug it in, I have volume equals pi times 2.7 squared times 5.1. And then I just plug that into my calculator. And I get 116.80 because I'm going to the nearest hundredth. So remember, this is tens right here, and this is hundredths. And these are meters, so meters cubed. Okay. The volume of this cylinder, so this is another one where they're giving us the volume, right? They want us to work backwards. Hey, look at that, 486 circled. Volume equals 486 pi. What is the radius? So they want to know what the radius is, so that's x. And I know from my formula, I have volume equals pi r squared times height, so I'm going to need height there as well. What's the height of my cylinder? 6. So I just plug in my stuff. $486 equals pi times r squared times absolutely. So I'm going to cancel my pi's out. Boom, boom. I divided both sides by pi, and they both canceled out. So now I'm getting rid of those guys. Now all I'm left with is 486 equals x squared times 6. You got it. Divide by 6. Can somebody tell me what 486 divided by 6 is? 81. Very good. Equals x squared. So what is x? Yeah. Well done. So the radius is 9. So you can go backwards, you can go forwards. It does not matter. But guys, I do like to put my little variables here, right here on the left-hand side. It just makes it a lot easier for me because then I know, like, I can say, oh, okay, radius is x. I'm trying to solve for that one. I highly recommend it. Okay, example 8. All right. I also. What do you have a question? Yeah, 2 shapes.
It's the 4 and the height.
Uh-huh. That's the Because basically, you have to find when you add both of these guys together. How many cubes can fit in this whole thing? If I were filling this thing full of water, or perfume, or oil, yep. Wait for the. If you haven't tried it, go ahead and try it. Now is the time. See all these pens and pencils wagging. Excellent. Well, let's take a look. So, we know that we're going to have to get volume of the cylinder and add it to the volume of the prism, right? So, we're going to get the volume of the cylinder, we add pi r squared times height, right? And the radius on this was 4, the height was 4. Thanks, sir. Hassan! Sign out immediately. And so, we're just going to plug all that stuff in. Volume of cylinder equals pi 4 squared times 4, which is 64 pi feet cubed. So that's my cylinder, right? Okay. Now, volume of prism is just the area of my base times my height. Somebody tell me what you chose for your base. Top, bottom, Edgar, what'd you choose? Yeah, go ahead and do that. Well, fight 14 times 12. You could do 14 times 12, which is perfectly fine. You could do 6 times 12 up here. Basically, when it's a rectangular prism, you can kind of choose which one your base is. Let's do 14 times 12. So 14 times 12 is the area of the base. That would make the distance between the two bases 6, right? Times 6. What if we had done 12 times 6? Then the area of the the distance between the area of the two bases would have been 14. Really, it's the same either way. It comes out to 1,008 feet cubed. And you just enter this into your calculator. 1,008 plus 64 times pi. Whoops, 64 times pi. Yep.
I have a question I want to know.
Yeah, sure.
That little shape that's like a square prism and then it's got two half circles on either end.
Yeah,
Can
right.
I treat that like a full circle because there's two of them?
As long as the radius is the same, absolutely you can treat it like a full circle.
Would it work for that one?
Yep. Yep. Because the radius in those little half circles is the same.
And then would the height be 4 like for the circle?
Would the height be 4 for each circle? Yes.
Okay.
You got it.
Just checking because that one was like I was like.
Yep. Very good. Very good. All right. Nice work, guys. Make sure you do the homework. Come to tutorials if you have any questions.